Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at an article from the Taiwan News. Now this was published on December 27th. It's written by Duncan D8th. And this just goes to show that China isn't as innocent as the legacy media and Democrats in this country, along with the neocon Republicans, would like you to believe. They want us to believe, actually, around the world, outside of China, that they're really not a threat economically. They're really not a threat militarily. They kind of play it down and they keep going Russia, Russia, Russia. And the whole time that they're like, oh, don't look over here at China, look over here at Russia, China's doing stuff like this. Now, I've known about this type of stuff because I keep an eye on what China's up to. And one of the ways I do that, besides others, is say with China Uncensored, for example. They talk about this stuff. I mean, they were talking about this stuff long before this article really, came out. And they've been talking about it for a while now. So look at the title here. China's African debt trap. Beijing prepares to seize Kenya's port of Mombasa. Yeah. They use predatory practices to get these countries like in Africa to take out this money for all these projects that they pay for. They have to use Chinese companies who then have, which they have to agree to this with the Chinese companies, who then they have to agree to the fact that these Chinese companies are employing people from China. It isn't projects that are being, worked on by local contractors and employing, the locals of the country. It's all done in China with the China connection. You have to, it's China or nothing. And so the money stays in China, and a lot of that money goes to these, members of the Communist Chinese Party who own these companies that are doing the work. So it's major graft going on. And on top of this, they make it so that these countries can't pay off the debt that they're incurring to basically allow the Chinese government to fuck them over while they're pocketing all the money. So let's get into the, let's look at the lead-in sentence or secondary headline, or however you want to look at it, before we get into the article itself. Nairobi fails to repay massive debts on shady loan for underperforming railway. Kenyan infrastructure ripe for taking, reports. And that's very true. And they intentionally set things up. So like, you need this massive infrastructure project. And they go, oh, it'll produce this much money. And they've done this before. Oh, it'll carry this many people. It'll do this, it'll do that. And they always tend to underperform. And they get these countries to depend on these projections, and they find out that that's not the case. This should scare people. This goes to show that China has this expansionist attitude, and it's going to lead, most likely, to confrontation. Whether it's a direct war, say, between the West and China, or the United States and China, it is yet to be seen. I mean, we could be looking at a proxy war, like the proxy wars, like Vietnam and Korea, and end up in a situation like that, or Syria right now is a proxy war. So whether or not we see proxy war or all-out war between China and the U.S., it depends, or China and the West, all depends on if we can nip in the bud their bullshit. I mean, we should be making inroads into Africa to stop this. If the United States is looking at defending Western interests. And I'm a libertarian saying that, because this could lead to some serious shit. And the only, I understand that this could lead to a possible world war. It could lead to, it could lead to a war in Asia or Africa, we need to stand up to China and say, look, enough is enough here. You're going to cut your fucking shit, or we're going to, start working with these African nations and make it so that, they don't want to deal with you. Well, I mean, if we were to enact the policies that we had during the Cold War with these African nations, giving them money, all that, and just to buy them off, it would really piss off China and probably screw them out of control over the African continent because they want all the natural resources there. I mean, it all depends on the situation. Is how much is China willing to push it, and how much is the United States willing to push back? But I mean, China is preparing to seize some major assets in African nation of Kenya as a result of debt trap diplomacy. Yeah, like I was just talking about. African media reports that Kenya may soon be forced to relinquish control of its largest and most lucrative port in Mombasa to Chinese control. Well, of course, you see, I'm sure that was one of the things they were eyeing, and they convinced them to put that up as part of the deal. And they went, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It'll perform the way that you'll expect. You don't have to worry about losing Mombasa. Oh, no worry here. No worry at all. Don't worry. You know what I mean? Come on now. That's basically what they were doing. Oh, nothing to see here. Well, don't worry. We won't take it from you. Yeah, right. It's like literally putting up, it's like dealing with the mob. You put up some collateral, oh, you're not going to take that from me, are you? Oh, no, don't worry about it. We ain't going to take that from you. No, not at all. And they're showing up with baseball bats and guns going, we're taking your property. Well, I thought you said, oh, we lied. That's what's going to end up happening there. That's what I'm sure that's what kind of happened there. Other assets related to the inland shipment of goods from the port, including the inland container depot in Nairobi and the standard gauge railway, may also be compromised in the event of a Chinese port takeover. Well, yeah. See, the whole thing is the Chinese, what they do is they get them to use them for the money for, these infrastructure expansion and improvement projects. So that they make it so that they have to use Chinese companies, Chinese labor, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And it puts them into the point of where China can come and basically repossess all those things, and they didn't have to pay for it to be built. And they own it. And now they have the highway, the railroad, everything else. And with that port, they already have a military base in Africa. It's like right next to a U.S. military base. Okay. So for them, once they take the port, to not start using it as a military base, as a naval base, would be stupid. And the Chinese aren't stupid. If they own that port, they will start using it as a naval base. In part because they want to have ships there to protect what they consider their interests. Kenya has reportedly taken extremely large loans from the communist government for the development of some major highways, and especially for the SGR, which forms a crucial transport link to and from Nairobi for the import and export of goods through Mombasa. Well, yeah, the Chinese aren't stupid. Of course they were involved in that. They looked down the map and they said, we're going to end up wanting to take these things, so let's set it up so we can take those things. So they make them take out these large loans. They have them put up collateral like the port at Mombasa, and they'll seize that asset, and they'll seize the assets of the improvement projects. It's really that simple. In November, Moody's noted that Kenya is at high risk of losing strategic assets because of debts owed to Beijing. Yeah. Which, I mean, to me, you would think that the Kenyan government would be like, you're shady fucking businessmen. You're not above the board. Come and fucking take it. Because then other nations would have to get involved. They wouldn't allow China to just, send the military into Kenya. That would be their best bet on standing up to China. Going, fuck you, we ain't paying. Fuck you, you ain't taking it. Now fuck off. Local media began to express concern that Chinese lenders may be angling to seize assets, since it does not appear the Kenyan government will be capable of repaying the loans, which was the very fucking intent. Oh my God, they set this up. They plan ahead. They've been doing this now in other nations for quite some time. They're working their way now into Central and South America as well. I mean, the Monroe Doctrine, protecting our interests along, in the North American continent, should be applying here. Now, 1 month later, ahead of the new year, it has been reported that the Chinese may be preparing to take over the Mombasa port infrastructure soon. Translation, they're going to be taking over the whole port. The African stand also seems to suggest that the SGR, which is operated by the Chinese, may have been designed to be a loss-making venture. Well, no fucking shit. That was the intent of it. They didn't want it to make money. They wanted to have that infrastructure. They set it all up so that they could take it over. And then they'll change how it operates and make it so that they can make money off of it. But this is part of their One Belt, One Road initiative. And if they can get other nations to pay for their One Belt, One Road initiative and then seize control, it's more lucrative for them to do that. It's cheaper. With a reported loss of KES 10 billion US, which is US 98 million, Kenyan ES, whatever KES is, 10 billion of them is 98 million in its first year of operation. Holy shit. That's a fucking loss if I ever saw one. Especially for like Africa. It would be nearly impossible to repay the loans taken for its construction in the time requested. Kenya reportedly accepted loans of 500 billion KES, which is 4.9 billion for the SGR's construction. Holy shit. Sounds like they got fucking screwed over. Sounds like they got taken. Makes me wonder if they went, oh, we got bridge in Brooklyn to sell you if you're interested. I mean, come on now. That's what it seems like to me. Oh, you want bridge in Brooklyn? We got bridge in Brooklyn. Kenya's Auditor General reportedly stated that deal has always favored the China Exim Bank, which advanced the loan for the project. Further, Kenya signed onto a deal that requires any arbitration of disputes related to the debt must take place in China. Well, of course, that was their fucking intent, because they know, like, with this, to keep them in control. China. Yeah, go to China to talk about shit. Okay, look at what has happened when U.S. manufacturers have gone there with to sue over direct copies. Oh, it doesn't look anything like it. What the fuck are you talking about? Throw a BMW badge on it. It looks like it's a fucking BMW. Shut the fuck up. Oh no, we don't see it. They'll do the same type of thing with this when it comes to the negotiating crap. So this is from the African stand here. An audit completed last month indicates that Kenya Ports Authority assets, which include the Mombasa port, could be taken over if the SGR does not generate enough cash to pay off the debts, which is intentional. Because they get the port, they can then, if they need to, which I'm sure they would probably do it, well, they already have one military base in, military base in Africa. They would have a second one. They would turn part of that port into a military base, I'm sure, or they would at least park their naval ships in it as a show of power and force and everything else. China Exim Bank would become a principal in over KPA if Kenya Railways Corporation defaults in its obligations and China Exim Bank exercises power over the escrow account security. Which China Exim Bank is owned by CCP members. Run by them too, go figure. You've got this like complete intermingling of the CCP and, on that note, the Chinese government with business there. It's fucking hilarious that they can, you know, say, oh, communism, and all these people are in these large corporations are CCP members, you know, and rich as all fucking hell, helping the government. Yeah, double standards of communism. Gotta love it. When the Chinese lender granted the loan to the Kenyan government, somehow the KPA signed on as a borrower. Somehow Kenya's government agreed that the port would not be protected by sovereign immunity since the government waived the immunity on the Kenya port's assets by virtue of KPA signing on as a borrower, according to the Auditor General. Yeah, that wasn't intentional. That wasn't in part due to corruption. Oh yeah, we want to sign on as part of the loan. Yeah, This has all been orchestrated. See, Russia isn't the threat. China is the threat. China needs to be nipped in the bud. China needs to have the West standing up to it saying, cut your fucking shit, or we're going to end up having to, you know, get into your face about this, and it could probably escalate to something that you don't want to get into at this point. Because if we don't start doing that, they're just going to keep their expansionist evil plans in play. It is becoming increasingly clear that China's designs on nations of Africa are anything but benevolent. Well, no shit. Doesn't take a fucking rocket surgeon to figure that one out. Kenya appears to be lining up behind Zambia, which is slated to lose its international airport as well as its national electricity grid because of defaults on Chinese loans. This is all planned. Oh, these countries are so fucking corrupt. They throw some peanuts to these people in government, and they make it so that they can take over shit that if these people, these corrupt fucking idiots, if they realized, if they played their cards right, they could be the ones running that shit. But no, they're just handing the stuff over to China for fucking trinkets. It's like the idea of the island of Manhattan for $23 worth of fucking beads. But the difference is these people have a fucking clue about monetary value. They just have freaking cheap prices that they can be bought on. African nations must wake up to China's new form of colonialism that is chipping away at their critical infrastructure, one major asset at a time. It's more than their major assets. It's about the money, too. They want them indebted to them. It's like the mob. They want to own the assets, but they, you know, the idea of, you got a restaurant, the mob moves in on you, you know, a mobster moves in on you, makes an offer you can't refuse, becomes your business partner. They have more than their sights set on just that partnership. They want the whole fucking business. They want to milk it for everything that it's worth. And that's what China's doing here. And these countries are so corrupt that that their leaders are allowing it to happen. I mean, the United States needs to look at ways to win over these countries, to stop this colonialism, because if this continues, it's going to lead to most likely some form of war in Africa, whether it's revolutions or war with Africa against China and outside nations, like say from the West. This could literally end up in a war in Africa. I mean, it's not like that's different for Africa anyways. I mean, they always seem to have one war or another going on at any given time. But this would be like war. And we really don't want that right now. I mean, we need to stand up to China, because now's the time to stand up to them and get them to back the fuck off, because with how they're trying to modernize and increase their military and increase its capabilities, if we keep pussyfooting around this shit, down the road, we're going to be fucked on that note, because, well, China will be way more powerful than it is now, and they could actually pose a threat. So, but anyway, I've covered this well enough. I'm just going to leave things here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video, when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.